Hey everybody, this is Henry Ammar. I'm so excited to share this podcast with you. This is an interview, the very first interview we have on this podcast, and I chose Rosie Acosta. She's not only a friend, but an incredible, amazing human being. She runs a podcast that's been top 100 on iTunes that's called Radically Loved. She's interviewed for some of the top people in the inspirational industry, just people making a difference across the world, and she makes a big difference. If you go to her website, you'll see she was a teen. She suffered from depression, anxiety, overeating. She turned to yoga and meditation. And I mean, literally now is changing so many lives from, Olympic athletes to NFL champions, NBA All-Stars, people you see on TV all the time, and even veterans. She just goes out doing so much good in the world. She has so much knowledge and wisdom. She always is asked to write for big magazines, and she's a representative for so many of the big. She was Nike, Adidas, Yoga Journal, and it list goes on. But I don't want to talk more. Let me let her talk. So without further ado, here's the podcast. Hey everybody, this is Henry Ammar from Making It Happen. Today is going to be awesome. I would not have anybody else I would want to interview for the first time on this podcast other than my favorite Rosie Acosta. She's here. So she had me on her podcast in February. Was it the first time?
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like it's been I feel like we've literally just been in each other's lives for
Forever.
years.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Bizarre.
And she kind of brought me into this podcast world and has been like one of the coolest friends I've had, supporting me and everything. So I wish there was like this big applause. Maybe I could put it into the podcast.
Maybe you need to put an applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rosie Acosta. Okay. So I mean, would you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll just tell them what I know about you?
Sure. This is always my least favorite part.
I'm sure.
It's like, tell us about yourself. My name is Rosie Acosta. I am a yoga teacher and yoga teacher trainer, meditation coach, life coach, health coach. It'll go like on and on. But mostly what my biggest passion is people and connecting with people and teaching them about radical love and how to radically love themselves and how to radically love other people. And I really use all of those mediums as a way to connect with people and to help people as much as I can. And I have been teaching for almost 10 years, and I have a business that I've created around the things that I'm passionate about, and I have a podcast of the same name that I use to interview people like yourself that are very inspiring and that inspire me and that are creative, and I just want to be able to share it with the world.
Okay, so she's really humble, and I love that. She's like, I am just have a little podcast and help people out here and there. So I'll tell you what I know about her. Every time you ask somebody, I love it like when people are like super awesome and they're super humble. So she just got off of this tour with Yoga Journal. She was one of the representatives. She has a podcast that has a bunch of superstars on it. She's interviewed Deepak Chopra, Simon Sinek, Gabby Bernstein, and all these people that you could probably list for a long time. It's called Radically Loved Podcast, right? So check it out. And she's amazing. Like, she is such an example to me. I call her, everybody has a few people they call when they need opinions. And for me, my standards are pretty high about calling people, and she's on my call list. She's on like my favorite. So I'm really excited for this podcast. I'm so excited to get to meet her and pick her brain and feel her heart and just gain so much wisdom from her, because she literally, and by the way, I can't state the names of people she's taught because some people are like very high up in the world of athleticism that she signed a contract and she can't tell people, but she works with some of the top people that you see every day on television. So she is amazing. So,
wow.
Was that loud?
No. I might have you just do my intro for my podcast.
Dude, I just scratched the surface. She like squeezed me in today. So I'll tell you this funny story. So she has obviously, like, she's very professional in her podcast world. How many episodes do you have at this point?
I think We've gotten to 150, maybe more. I think it's more than that. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
It's been a lot.
That's awesome.
It's been 2 years in the making.
So 150, and I'm on like 4 or 5. So this is very new to me. She sent me this like really cool email like, hey, this is how many downloads. I have like a zillion downloads, and all these things. It's very formal. And I just called. I was like, hey, are you free tomorrow?
Oh, when I sent you the request to be a guest. Oh,
send me like this calendar. And
a scheduler.
Totally. And I texted her yesterday. I was like, hey, I know this is really ghetto, but can you be interviewed for my podcast tomorrow? So,
and here we are.
You got to start somewhere, guys. So,
that's true.
I just threw myself in the fire, but this is going to be awesome. So, I just want them to know, like, the wisdom and the cool knowledge bombs that you always drop on me, and we'll just extract those from you in this podcast. So, like, first of all, radically loved. What does that mean?
I'm like, good luck. Let's see where I'm at today.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny that we're talking about this because, when you are in a particular place in your life or in your career with your friends, sometimes, like, we've talked about this before, where you're expected to have knowledge or to know certain things or to, help people. And sometimes you're not really in that place, right? And
totally.
it's like, it's so interesting to, the reason I say that, it's like coming off the tour, and we've talked, I was fortunate enough to have Henry the entire time I was on the road, and we'd have conversations, I was up, I was down, like, it was just interesting to be able to, have him be a part of the process. And so the reason why I say that is because, coming back off the tour, I was just so overwhelmed with just things that needed to be done, and it's the end of the year, and I was a little bit drained.
Yeah, tell them. So you were gone for 6 months.
Yes.
Across the whole country.
Yeah. So the tour was called Live Be Yoga, and it was through Yoga Journal magazine. Brant and I, my yoga buddy, my counterpart, we were commissioned to do this tour for 6 months. We did 22 cities. We would spend a week in each city, and the idea was to document and to explore the yoga community in each city. So we would go to Atlanta, and we would spend a week there, and we would go explore all the local healthy eats and the local yoga studios and the meditation centers and the ashrams, and we'd go to New Orleans, and then we'd go to Miami and Houston and Salt Lake City. I mean, we went everywhere, all the big major cities and some in between. And it was, the idea was to really showcase not only places that people could go to, where we would create city guides that live on yogajournal.com, who are writing articles, but it was really to expose the people in this country that are living and being the vision of what yoga is, right? So it's not just the hot yoga vinyasa teacher, not hot as I'm just saying, like just hot, like hot yoga. When I say like the hot, like I'm, I mean, some of them were. I shouldn't say that, but they all were. I should just say that.
There you go.
So anyway, I digress. But it was really about showcasing the people that are taking their yoga off the mat and working with, people in recovery, or people who are in prison, or teachers that are going to teach children with disabilities, and just it was pretty. I mean, we got to interview and meet so many people, and we documented the whole thing. So if people are interested in seeing it, all the videos are on my YouTube channel, and they're also on the Instagram of Live Be Yoga. And each week we would do a recap that's about a minute long, and it doesn't really give it does a good job at giving you like a very sort of superficial view of what we did, but it really just doesn't capture the experience.
What was one of your favorite experiences on that? A memorable thing, someone you met that just touched you, or a lesson you learned, something profound?
Oh my goodness.
Those are
so many different questions. I think that, wow, so many people. There were so many people that I met. I don't know. I think that definitely one of the most profound experiences I had was at this little meditation. Well, it's a yoga studio. It's called Sacred Chill West, and it's in Atlanta. It's actually like 40 minutes outside of the city. maybe a little less, I think. But
I like the sound of that. We're going to have a sacred chill.
yeah, sacred chill. That's right. And which I'm actually going to be doing a workshop out there. So it's really cool that they're having me come back. I think it was just kind of the time during the time we were there was a lot of things happening in the news with, not only just politics, but, racial tensions and things. And walking into that studio and seeing not only the diversity, but the different age ranges, men and women, different backgrounds. We walk into the studio and it was just the most beautifully led, wholehearted yoga class that I'd probably ever been to.
Wow.
And again, it could have been the state of the world or the state where we were at that time. We'd been on the road for a little while and we were just really needing to have that experience. And Octavia Rahim was our teacher, and she was absolutely incredible. And she's definitely one of those people that are out doing it, really living and being the embodiment.
So when this is going to sound really funny, because before I really learned what yoga was, like truly what it was, I thought it was you just bend in like really crazy positions and stretch yourself out, until I went to a class and I realized that there is like a lot of strength yoga where I was in one class where this lady that was probably 70 something was holding positions that I was like shaking and like almost crying because my muscles were gonna like fail on me. But it's also very like mindful. There's meditations involved. There's so many different things involved. Yes. So when Octavia was leading it, like, I guess for people that aren't as into yoga or don't understand it as much, what makes it special? Like, what does it really do for somebody?
Yeah.
So I feel like mindfulness is going to start really getting big in the world because there's so much stress, so many stresses in the world, so much going on in the world. I mean, not just in a macro level, but in people's lives individually, whether they're trials or struggles. So how can they use either mindfulness or meditation or yoga for themselves? And what was it in that particular meditation that we can apply in what we're doing?
Those are all very good questions.
Do I ask like 7 questions at a time?
Yeah, and I try to like choose which one.
Yeah, choose which one. I'm giving you, it's like multiple
you're giving me
choice.
A lot, and I'm like, and I want to answer every single one. And I'm like, okay. So yoga means yoke, or to join, to unite. So it means union. That's what the Sanskrit root means. And so we see it as the union of mind, body, and space, or mind, body, and spirit. Whatever your higher power would be. For a lot of us that utilize yoga as a spiritual practice, that's where we connect, right? And so I think that for me, it's been such it's just been part of my path for so long that when I walk into yoga class, I do definitely want to move my body, because that is one component. And the thing is, we focus on the one component, and most people, maybe even people listening to this, don't actually know that there is a spiritual component to yoga. And the idea or the promise of what this practice does is that through moving your body, you begin to get more connected to who you are and what you really are. Because we are not this body. You are not your breath. You are that which rides on the breath, or that which is so much bigger than we can even conceive. Right. And so ultimately it's that realization. Yoga is really the process of waking up to who and what you really are. I love that. And so I think that a lot of the modernization of yoga now just kind of skates on the surface of that. And that's what I found being on the road. So that's my personal experience. I love that. Discovering who you really are. To me, a big thing I always say is like the truth really sets you free. And a lot of times we think we're these stories that we have in our mind. Like someone said something when we were younger that, hey, you're terrible at this. And so you walk around your whole life feeling like in a box because someone made a comment, or we carry this belief. And in reality, as you said, we're so much bigger than we know. And that is probably one of the greatest things I've ever discovered, is the fact that I am not my stories. I am not what I think my identity is. I'm actually this
powerful being that can create a life and create an experience for my life, and I don't have to sit and, listen to the stories that keep me bound or have these glass ceilings. And yoga is probably an amazing tool for that.
Yeah.
And the few times I've done it has been amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's, we've talked about limiting beliefs when you've been, I guess, on my podcast. We've talked about that and how, those things begin to inform all the decisions that we make in life. And really how yoga works to eradicate that is by allowing you to become a detective of your own mind and your limiting beliefs. And my teacher always says, how you do anything on the mat is how you do everything in life. So are you challenging yourself too much? Are you pushing yourself too far? Are you not allowing yourself to take a break? Or are you just letting yourself kind of just be lackadaisical and you're putting things off? And are you like, I don't really feel like doing that because I don't want to work that hard, And so I think that, again, part of this whole process is us really utilizing these tools to wake up to the present and to wake up. And again, without trying to sound too, cliche about being present and what that really means, because, I have interviewed Simon Sinek before and we talked about being present and what that actually means. And I really loved his definition of what presence meant. And he said, you don't get to decide when you're present. You're present when you're in the service of others. Therefore, you don't get to decide. Somebody else gets to decide if you're present or not. And I really liked that because I can sit here and be like, I'm present all day long. I'm awake in the world and I'm doing all these practices. But if I'm with my family or with my friends and I'm distracted and I'm on my phone and I'm too busy being present, posting about being present on Instagram. I'm telling you a true story. I'm not really being present. And I think that the more that we catch ourselves in that cycle, the more we become conditioned to stop the behavior and stop the patterning of the things that are keeping us in the same place. So yoga is really about evolving those states and also eradicating the ego, and eradicating the parts of you that you think that's what you are. I identify with these things or my characteristics or who I am. There's a big yoga teacher. He was one of the people responsible for bringing yoga to the West. Very well respected, Mr. BKS Iyengar. And he wrote a book called Light on Life. And Light on Yoga as well. And it's actually a yogic text that I recommend for my teacher trainees. It's part of the required reading. He's one of my favorite teachers. And I remember in Light on Life, he is talking about the ego and just like all the things that we believe and what we think we are, what our mind thinks we are. And he gives this example of like how the ego is so determined for survival, right? Our mind, what does Tony Robbins says? Our mind is designed for survival. Yeah. It's designed to keep us alive. Totally. It's not designed to
make us happy.
Exactly. And so, he talks about the story of how, like, what would you do, if a big elephant was stampeding towards you? You don't say, oh my goodness, my ego is going to get crushed.
That's true. That's so true.
You say, oh, I'm going to get out of the way because I don't want to die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's that sort of separation where in some instances we can really separate from the materialism and the nature of our ego or our negative or limiting beliefs. And we can separate to, something bigger than ourselves and really what creates the tapestry of our connection to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I always, when I did the retreat in Bali, which Rosie was awesome and supported me in so much.
I'm so sorry I missed it. I'm definitely coming to, we can talk about what we're doing together next. But
we might be doing something together, so stay tuned until next time. Okay, we're doing something together, which is going to be awesome. And I'm so grateful. Like, I think Rosie said the same thing, but there's not a lot of people I'd be like, yeah, let's do something with, with somebody else. So Rosie is definitely one of those people, and I'm excited for it. At my retreat in Bali, I was sitting there like, what do I really want people to get from this? And you just nailed something that was really big for me when I was there was I want people to have self-love, and I want people to have love for others, and ultimately love for, divine or what, wherever they feel that spiritual connection. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately creating a life they love. So it's like 4 love things. But first, like if you love yourself from a true state, not selfishly, but like you take care of yourself, you're strengthening yourself, going to do, whether it's yoga or a different type of practice that gets you in the best state, the best mindset, the best heart, removing those things in your life that don't serve you, and then also loving others, you ultimately don't settle for, a life where you develop a life you love. Because if you love yourself, you don't settle. If you love other people, you don't, if that makes any sense. And I'm just kind of ranting, I'm cramming 9 days into 30 seconds, but like having we can't live in isolation. And I love that because sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to live my life and I'm going to be the best version I could be. But I know so many people that are so successful in life, like extremely successful, but they're alone and they're not happy and they think about themselves, but they have everything they want. There was a guy that told me once, I just wrote I was in the music industry, we were young, we're having a great time. We were like broke at the time because, you're starving musicians, they call them. And he's like, the guy looks at us and goes, I don't understand. He goes, I just wrote my daughter $1 million check for her birthday today. And he goes, I'm miserable. I have the cars I've always wanted in my driveway. I have all this stuff. Why are you guys happier than I am? And that like really hit me. And it was like, wow, there's so much more than what we strive for. What is happiness? What brings that? And it spurred a whole new set of questions. Man. But
yeah, no, I really love that you're saying that because Tori and I were just talking about this this last weekend, because we're both dreamers. We say like we're not dream catching. It's like dream manifesting, right? So we're like, there's a word we use and I'll try and think about it. I'm like, we obviously don't use it that much. It's like we use it when we remember. But we were talking about that, and the things that we want to create in our lives and just how much we've accomplished. In our time together, I started dating Tori when I was 20, That's been, 14 years, almost 15.
Yeah.
And so our dreams are so different now, and it's so interesting to be able to, look back at the things that we thought we wanted or the things that we thought were going to make us happy, and they didn't. There was definitely times in our lives together as a couple where there were things that I thought were going to make us happy or that were going to be things that we really strived for, and once we were there, it just felt empty, And it wasn't until I started practicing yoga and I started to practice meditation and I started to really wake up to the things that my heart was desiring that I started to feel happy and to actually feel joy because, we've talked about how we both grew up and lack mentality and just from this having a different mindset, and to me thinking, okay, it's always an upward battle. It's always a journey, and it's always going to be hard, and it's always going to be work, and it's always going to be the most. But to me, I never shy away from the work, and I know that you don't either. Right. We like it, but I think there's a point where you do all of that, and then you get to where you want to be, or you hit a benchmark or a goal, and then it's there, and then it's like, okay, well, what's next?
Totally.
Well, then what's next? And it's like, the yoga of fulfillment is really about gratitude and being grateful for what you have now and being in that state of joy now. And it's not like, maybe it is a little bit of that, like visualizing it as if it's happening in this moment. But to me, when I read, A Course in Miracles, or I read, The Power of Manifestation and all of these different things, I'm like, well, to me, that makes sense. And not because I'm going to manifest that life that I want, or that, Spanish villa in the south of Spain that I want, or whatever it is, it's really about, I am so grateful that I'm healthy right now.
Yeah.
And that I have a roof over my head.
Yeah.
And how fortunate and privileged are we to be able to have these conversations and to be able to have free speech and to be able to have freedom, you know, and to be able to have food and not worry about where our next meal is coming from.
And I always say, I love that. I always say, be grateful for where you are now and get excited about where you're going. Like, you know, don't resist what is, because it is what it is.
Right.
You know? And I love that. It's being grateful now. And I think Rosie and I have this conversation many times where she was saying, you know, a lot of times we grow up and, you know, my parents, and I could just speak for myself, you know, we had a room where my parents' bed and our bunk bed barely fit in the whole room. And so growing up, I had this belief that you have to work really hard to barely get by. And that's what Rosie was saying. Like, we know everything is always work. It's always hard. Always this. And, you know, I had that, you know, belief. But going through and recognizing that, you know, that was a belief that I used to have. And it is kind of a lack mentality, like there's not enough in the world. But when you realize that gratitude actually says, wow, it's not, you know, you're not rushing, oh, I'm ungrateful, like I need more, meaning like there's not enough. I need more, meaning, but when we step and we really think about gratitude now, it's such an abundant mentality. It's like, I am so grateful for all these things that I've already been given. And I think in that state, when you're living in a joyous state, a grateful state, and having more fun, and you're still working hard and you're still doing all this stuff, you're more likely to get what you want, and you're going to work hard anyways. But a lot of times we don't couple the hard work, or some people don't couple the work hard with the fun, but both of them together are important, where I think it's so important to have a grateful, abundant mentality. Like there's plenty in the world for everybody, you know?
Yeah, and I think especially too, like just to your point, you know, of having that conditioning, you know, like I come from immigrant parents, you know, that this isn't their home country. And I was taught that, you know, they sacrifice so much and, you know, you have to work really hard or else, you know, you get nothing.
Totally.
Yeah. And so there's a little bit of that fear too that's driving you.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, oh, well, I have to work hard or else.
Yeah.
Or else.
And it's so good to keep the work hard part. And I think, you know, one good question for everybody listening to ask is, okay, well, what have I developed because of my difficulties? And a lot of times something really good, like work hard, but the or else part doesn't serve us.
Yeah.
So we could pick and choose. I'd like to keep the work hard part, but let's replace the or else part.
Yeah.
I'm going to work hard and this, you know, or whatever that is.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
So, but because it's served both of us. I think Rosie, okay, let me just go backwards really quickly to her tour. Because she's amazing. So on her tour, she literally was not only representing Yoga Journal, doing classes all across the country, driving across the country. She had her personal clients. She was still running her podcast. She was still taking care of family stuff while she's gone. And I mean, and this is all while broadcasting and doing all this stuff. I mean, she did more in one day than I think the average human being does in like a week and a half probably. Because I literally see her on her Instagram stories. I'd be like, oh my gosh. And I know she's like, Henry, I have a client I'm speaking to at my lunch break. So your work ethic is through the roof. And I'm sure it's served you. I mean, that's why I believe you have a top podcast. And, you know, this is just the beginning. You scratch the surface and you're doing so many great things. And I feel like that served you, and it's cool to see her evolution and growth, and just what she tells me of how she's overcome these, you know, stories and stuff like that in her life. Because look, all of us, we can't control our past or our circumstances or anything like that, and we're not supposed to. We can just ask the question, how can I use that to strengthen me and help me get to where I need to go? So whether they're trials now, whether you're listening and your family's in a tough situation, or whether you grew up and you're like, man, I grew up in a very difficult circumstance, whether you grew up with a lot of money and no love, or a lot of money and love, hopefully. But, you know, with my family, there was, you know, a lot of stuff going on. So I could just extract the juice from it and then leave it in the past where it belongs and go forward.
Yeah.
So I love that about Rosie. She works so hard, and that's the beauty of growing up the way you did and the way I did, is our work ethic is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I would not, you know, I don't begrudge anyone of how I was raised or how I grew up.
Totally.
I think that the experiences that I had, growing up in an underprivileged, community, and during, the LA riots and being around a lot of gang violence and drugs and alcoholism, all of those things really helped shape who I am. It showed me a different world. To me, that was the or else.
Yeah.
Totally. And so, regardless of my struggles as a young adult, I think that at the end of the day, it definitely helped inform the person that I am now, and has helped pave the way for the work that I want to do for my life.
Yeah.
And the work that I do with the people I work with. It's just, it's like everything. There's ups, there's downs, but at the end of the day, I think really having gratitude and for me, I mean, as I said, and this, like, I'm very, spiritually driven. To me, it's I have to, there's a higher power, and to me that's really the force that's driving everything. And so I lean into that when I'm in hardship, or when I'm struggling, and the rest is always good. Yeah,
I totally agree. Now, if you can go back to that Rosie and give her what, after you've had all these experiences and all these life lessons, which I was going to say you could write a book, but she is writing a book, because there's so many lessons we've talked about. We literally could do this all day.
We literally could.
And
we'll do it for an entire weekend coming soon.
Oh, that's true. Very soon. Okay. Oh, I was like, oh, we are?
Yeah.
But yes, we are. Which is awesome. So if you can go back with all these experiences and give your younger self one piece of advice or an insight, what would it be?
Wow. I would say instinctually, I want to say trust yourself, because I think that brought me to where I am now.
Yeah.
But then I also made a lot of mistakes because I did trust myself. I would think that the biggest thing that I would tell myself is, don't be so concerned with what anybody else's limiting belief is about you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nobody defines you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what I would say.
I like want to pause and ponder this for a minute, but it's so good. Don't be so concerned with somebody else's limiting belief about you. And that's a good piece of advice. And wow. And so for you now, off of this tour, so she already has a lot going on next year. She's teaching at Wanderlust. She's speaking and teaching at the Wanderlust festivals, right? Bunch of retreats, bunch of these people that have seen her are getting her back. Her plate's already booking up for 2018. What are you looking forward to?
I think I'm so passionate and I'm so driven by my work, and to see the response of people actually wanting me to come is just still boggles my mind. I'm like, what? You really want me to come and teach here? Like, that's so crazy, So I think just really reveling in that and appreciating that for what it is, and being able to really take it in. I think I'm so future oriented.
Yeah.
That I'm already thinking of 2019, and there's already things on my potential schedule. And I'm also leading my first, I've taught yoga teacher trainings before, but this is my very first one that I'm doing, which is really exciting for me. Because I worked really hard on creating a curriculum and really wanting to provide something substantial for the people that want to learn. I think that what I'm looking forward to the most is just being able to really just enjoy the process, because I know after all the work that I've done and still continue to do and still continue to practice, I know that it'll be a moment in time that I'll look back on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love how you said earlier how there's always going to be next and next and next. I think I told the story before, but we just moved again in September. And every time I move, I get reminded of this. And I have this box that I have by my desk. Did I tell you this story?
No.
I have this box. I have this box.
Bosque. Oh, I love that. Bosque.
I have a box by my desk, and I always get it out. I'm like, what's in this box? And it's the certificate of the Grammy performance we did. It's the USC diploma. It's this award. It's that award. And I'm like, at one point it was everything, and now it's in a box, and I'm searching for the next thing. And so much in life. And I think
so metaphorical. I'm like, that is just so metaphorical. You just said it's like,
it's
so
crazy.
good.
And
Yeah.
you think about, like, so right now, even anybody listening or us, what has happened in our lives that we can just be grateful for, looking back and seeing, what have you worked hard at already and overcome?
Yeah.
What have we already done in our lives?
Yeah.
Because we're so like, oh man, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. What if you're there right now and you're going to be another place later, and we can appreciate where you are
Yeah.
and know how awesome you are as well right now, and not being like, I'm going to be good enough when I'm this.
Yeah.
You're valuable now, you're unique now, and then when you get there, you'll just be a better version of that awesomeness you are now, and your life is going to be a better version of it now, instead of waiting for some moment to really live.
Yeah.
Because, waiting to live and waiting to enjoy life tomorrow is going to become tomorrow, and then that's tomorrow, and then it's going to be years, and it's going to be the end of our lives, and we're going to be like, dang, I should have enjoyed the journey a little bit more.
Yeah. It's like when people say, I'll be happy when.
Right.
I'll be happy when I'm making 6 figures. I'll be happy when I buy the house that I want, or I'll be happy when. Another thing, just to kind of touch on that a little bit, I do want to address the fact that, and I address it because I just had a conversation about this last night, this exact topic. One of my clients was talking about, I was giving her the same thing that we're talking right now, literally this conversation. And she said, so what if right now I feel like, is this it? And it's not good enough for me. And I'm like, that's something you need to unravel.
Right.
You need to unpack that a little bit more, because how could you not allow yourself to enjoy this moment?
Yeah.
You have everything,
And it's interesting, because when people ask, is this it? I'm not happy where I'm at. I think emotions are indicators. Maybe it's a good thing you're unhappy. You're realizing I'm not happy where I'm at, because it's just showing you, hey, you need to make some shifts.
Yes.
And first, to me, and we always have this conversation, it's internal before it's external, right? What am I focused on? What am I telling myself? Where am I at? What story am I living in? Versus, and then saying, okay, I'm unhappy now. Thank you for showing me, body, spirit, mind, that this isn't where I want to be. Now, if I want to get to where I want to go, what's the best possible way I can get there in the best state? Because in the state of resistance is where, the lack of peace comes in pain. When we resist what is, instead of just saying, this is what it is. I can't change these circumstances, but I could change myself.
Yeah.
It's
just about
I love
changing
that.
your perspective. It's you changing you. It's like, that's, it's all the same. It's like all part of that self-development or self-inquiry that yoga does, or meditation. It's you have to start the change within yourself. That's where it changes. That's where you shift your thinking. That's where you can, it's what I said earlier. It's where you can eradicate the ego, or you can eradicate those limiting things about your life that are causing you suffering.
I love it.
We can go on.
I know. So I mean, we can really go on. So just to kind of close the conversation now and tie it back to being radically loved, which is Rosie's podcast name and her theme and her motto and what she teaches. We'll just loop it back in and close a little circle on it. What does it mean to be radically loved? Is it?
Radically loved is this belief that we are completely supported by the universe, God, higher power, whatever it is outside of you that binds this world together and is there to love you and support you. Just think about it like a warm blanket. It's just anytime you feel that you're alone, or that you're not loved, or you feel disconnected from the other.
Yeah. I love that.
You have to remember that you are radically loved. And you have the power to radically love someone or something else.
Yeah.
So when you want to feel radically love something or someone. You know, every time, this is how I always close all my classes. You know, I always dedicate the fruits of the practice, or at the end of the class, I always say, dedicate this practice to someone you love or someone who could use healing. And then together we send love and healing to all sentient beings around the world who are suffering. And it's just such an interesting thing. You know, I've had different people come up to me at the end of class and ask why, or they say thank you, because it's like, we're jamming in this class, or we're doing like a vinyasa class, and we've got an awesome playlist going on, and we're moving. And then at the end, it's like, well, something happened. Something happened on that mat. Whether you see it, you realize it, or not. How can we utilize that as a gift for someone else?
Yeah.
Even if it's in that moment you think of someone that you love or somebody who's suffering, that you're like, I'm going to send my efforts of this morning, of this ritual, of this spiritual practice to someone or something else.
Yeah, I love that. So radically loved, that you are always radically loved, no matter what, that if you want to feel radically love somebody else. And I guess it's important, and the message to everybody listening really is that they are loved and they can feel love. And I guess find somebody you can give that love to.
Yeah. And if you don't feel radically loved, just message me on Instagram, and I give radical love all the time.
Okay, so let's end with this. Where can they find you on social
everywhere
media?
So if you want more information about what I do, or events or things or retreats, anything that I'm doing, just go to radicallyloved.com. I'm on social media. I'm usually on Instagram doing Insta stories. It's at Rosie Acosta, Rosie Acosta, and it's the same on Twitter and Facebook. I do Facebook Live occasionally, but I don't really go on there. Sorry, guys. It's about the Instagram.
Sorry, Mark.
It's the Insta Live. That's it. That's where you can find me.
Definitely follow her, find her. She has blessed my life, and I know she'll do the same for yours.
Yes.
And I thank you for being on my first interview. This is my first interview.
Ever.
As you can tell, I'm gonna get better because I asked her like 7 questions at a time, which obviously is rookie status.
Oh, it's not true.
Well, thank you for being on here. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will have more of Rosie later on in the future.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And one thing I will say is that if you are listening to this, Henry is going to give you the absolute best content, best advice, best wisdom. He's the best. And I'm so lucky to be his friend. And I'm so excited that he's finally doing this, because I think everyone needs to hear what he has to say. And I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I paid her $5 to say that.
I'm just kidding.
All right. See you, everybody. This is Henry Ammar, making it happen. Bye.